Excellent. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. I just want to say off the top that some of you may have noticed that we will be piloting a soft launch of a live stream of tonight's meeting. The video will be uploaded to HRM's YouTube account and will be accessible to the public. The stream is a static live shot. Power points used may be hard to see, but will be posted to halifax.ca tomorrow on the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council agenda page, so you can see it there. All right, we are excited to offer streaming in this facility for the first time. So we are going to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to confirm that we have quorum, because that's what it says I'm supposed to do. I think we do. I think we're good. The land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So to start, I'm going to call for approval of minutes from December 1st, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, no, we need a... You were here, Sam? No, I don't think you were here. You were. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So all in favor? Aye. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Do we have any additions or deletions, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We do not have any additions to the agenda this evening.
Okay, wonderful. Any members of council have addition? Yep. Oh, right. Okay. Okay, call for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. So moved. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, perfect. Business arising out of the minutes? None. Call for declaration of conflict of interest. Yes.
I'm going to declare a conflict for the Carver Street one. Just by way of explanation, my brother's house is like 3 doors away from that development proposal. My family and his are quite close, and there's some strong feelings on it, and I don't feel I could be objective on it, given the family ties.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Councillor Austin. No problem.
That's good.
Motions of reconsideration, we have none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, and this takes us to our public hearing, originally dated December 1st, and we'll be doing that this evening. Case 23928, the development agreement for 386 Cow Bay Road, Eastern Passage. So thank you for joining us today for a public hearing. The process will start with a staff presentation and questions of clarification from staff. And then the applicant will be given an opportunity to present. After that, we will go to the public hearing, and speakers can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes each. Please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and direct it to the chair. The clerk will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is complete for all speakers. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I will call 3 times to see if there's additional speakers. Clerk, can you confirm if any correspondence has been received for this public hearing since the beginning of this meeting?
Thank you very much. There has been correspondence received for item number 8.1, and this correspondence was circulated to members of Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have our staff presenter here, Daryl Jodry. Excellent, welcome, and you will share your presentation with us. Thank you.
My name is Daryl Jodry, and I'm a planner with the Urban Enabled group who handle applications for development agreements and rezonings. Tonight's application is for a development agreement at 386 Cow Bay Road in Eastern Passage. The applicant's proposal is the applicant is Roms Keg Spryfield Limited, and as I said, the location is 386 Cow Bay Road in Eastern Passage. The proposal is for a 2-story, 12-unit apartment building with 16 surface parking spaces, slab on grade wood frame construction. And in the illustration to the right-hand side of the slide, this is a view of an elevation of the street facing gable end.
Daryl, highlight your adventure slides at the same time.
Slide should be working. There you go. Ah, sorry. So as I said, the proposals for the 2-story, 12-unit apartment building with 16 surface parking spaces, slab on grade, wood frame construction, and the images of the street-facing gable end showed to the left. The site context, the image to the left-hand side shows the general site location within the red circle down in Eastern Passage. The subject site boundaries are shown in red on the image on the right-hand side of the slide. And the location within the red boundary, you'll see a dashed white line, and that indicates the front elevation of the proposed new building. This is a view of the subject site at 386 Cow Bay Road, taken from, it's a Google image taken from the center of the street. The image on the left-hand side of the slide is a view to the southwest on Cow Bay Road from immediately in front of the site. And the image on the right-hand side of the slide is a view to the northeast from Cow Bay Road from the site. Planning policy outline. The regional plan and subdivision bylaw guide where population growth and the investment of services in the municipality, such as transit, piped water, and sewer, should occur. The community plan outlines where and how different types of development may occur. Particular uses may not be permitted in some areas, and other uses may only be allowed by going to council for approval and getting feedback from the community. The land use bylaw, which most people are familiar with as the zoning, specifies what can be approved without going to council and seeking any feedback from the public. The policy and bylaw overview. The Eastern Passage Cow Bay Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw are in effect in the area. The site and area is serviced with municipal service and water. The zone currently on the lands is the R2 or 2-unit dwelling zone. The designation under the municipal planning strategy is urban residential or UR, and this is where the policy is found that enables this application. The existing use is a single unit residential dwelling and accessory dwellings, accessory uses, and the enabling policy is policy UR8 of the MPS. This is a chart of the planning process for a development application without a planning advisory committee. The application is completed and goes through a detailed staff review and then through public engagement. A staff report is prepared after the planner analyzes the public engagement and team review information received, and then it comes to Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council for a notice of motion, and this is where the date is set for the public hearing, and that is where we are at tonight, the solid blue form. And after the hearing tonight, there is a 14-day appeal period, as this is appealable to the UARB. This is the site plan of the proposal. It shows the rectangular shape or footprint of the proposed building, and the parking is in front of the building, between the street and the building. The footprint itself is basically centered between the two property boundaries. It is a little wider side yard on the side, on the
bottom part of the slide because there's a walkway that will bring residents to the entryway into the building. This is the four drawings of the elevations of the proposal, showing the front and the rear gable ends and the side ends of the and the longer sides of the building. The gables face onto Cow Bay Road, and the long pitched part runs back the length of the site. Policy consideration for this application is found under the Eastern Passage Cow Bay Municipal Planning Strategy and Eastern Passage Cow Bay Land Use Bylaw. As I said earlier, the enabling policy was UR8, which allowed for the development of 12 multiple unit dwellings by development agreement. And it requires council to consider the following in rendering their decision on a development agreement: the height, bulk, appearance, and lot coverage compatibility, the separation distance from low-density residential use, site design, such as landscaping, amenity areas, and parking, traffic access, connections, and circulation, and finally, the servicing and environmental concerns. Public engagement feedback. The level of engagement completed was consultation achieved through a mail-out notification to 333 property owners within 500 feet of the notification area, which is the proposed site. The feedback from the community generally included the following. There were issues with increased traffic volumes. The height, scale, and side yard setbacks are not in keeping with the neighborhood. And there were some concerns about noise and lack of privacy. Changes responding to the consultation. Citing bulk and scale. This is controlled in the development agreement to ensure that the application's intentions are carried out. Landscaping. The DA provides a requirement for a landscape plan that generally conforms with the overall intentions of the side plan and is to be prepared by a landscape architect. The landscape plan provides for visual screening of the parking area and driveway access, and it also provides for visual screening for the ground level dwelling units from abutting properties on the east and west property lines where possible, by plantings of upright form trees or hedges along those property lines or fences, with climber plantings where there is narrow separation. A summary, the key aspects of the proposal. The proposed building form is a 2-story traditional gable roof. The site development plan. The parking lot location, number of spaces, and landscape screening are shown on the site plan with the development agreement. There is a landscaping treatment to provide methods for mitigating overlook, provide some noise attenuation, and parking treatment. And there's also requirement, as I said on the previous slide, requirement for a landscape plan to be prepared by a landscape architect. In the development agreement, there are a list of substantive and non-substantive amendments, and non-substantive amendments come back to Community Council for approval by resolution, and there is no public input. So we like to pull these out to make everyone aware of what they are. In this particular agreement, the non-substantive amendments include changes to the landscaping measures and amendments to extend the amount of time for the commencement or completion of the development. Staff recommend that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council approve the proposed development agreement, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated September 16, 2022. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Does any member of council have questions of clarification? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Austin. Okay, Councillor Kent, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you for the work that you've done on this file. I appreciate that. I just have a concern, a question around the height comparison, because I think, I just wonder, I want to be clear, there are townhouses adjacent to this particular parcel. And in the report, it talks about this building being similar or lower. And do you have a sense of how tall those townhouses are, like compared to the 27? I'm not sure that you would have specifically looked for that. I probably should have called.
Madam Chair, through you to the councillor, I don't know their exact height, but in speaking to the architect, he did tell me that the finished height, the peak of the ridge line of the proposed building will be lower than the townhouses
Okay,
because of the
that's what
way
I
they're
thought, yeah.
constructed on their exposed foundations. And he has kept this one very low by building it on the slab and there is no basement for windows or anything.
And what would
with
be an
windows.
average, what is the maximum height for the single unit dwellings in those areas, just to get a sense of what the
It's
max?
35 feet, councillor.
So for the single unit,
Yes,
like the single properties?
yes.
Yeah, so it's much lower in general. Okay. And there was the traffic impact study. I know that was done and that the determination was negligible. Is there any more detail that can be provided tonight around the mechanism? And maybe the proponent can speak to this if they're here. Are the proponents here tonight? Yes. Will they be speaking? Okay. Perhaps, can they come forward if I have a question? Yeah, so I'll do this and then we'll ask that later. I was just wondering if we could have more detail on the kinds of measurements they would have taken. What would be included? This location is it's a busy corridor, and it's very close to an intersection. It's a very, very busy corner, one of the main intersections in the community. And I just, is a review, a traffic impact study, what would be the key priorities for that review that close to an intersection? I assume that would be different than perhaps on a long stretch with no traffic lights. So I'm just curious about that, and perhaps if you want to defer that to the proponent, that's okay.
Madam Chair, through you to the councillor, the traffic engineer performed a measurement of the site stopping distance to
Yeah.
ensure that they met standards, and both in east and west directions, both of the standards were met at the speed limit of 50 kilometers an hour for Cow Bay Road.
Okay.
And their analysis showed that there would be limited queuing at the intersections.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at, was thinking about the impact of how that would delay other further cars in the backup that's there now. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. So the one question I had for staff there was around the setback. This building seems to be quite far back from the street, and I'm wondering if that is something that was chosen by the applicant, or whether our rules are forcing it so far from the street.
Madam Chair, through you to the councillor, I know that you are usually you see us put parking in the rear of most developments, especially in urban or urbanizing situations. In this case, we did ask the applicant to look at it, but the problem was to put the parking in the rear and moving the building towards the street. There would have to be an on-site driveway to access the parking in the rear, and then that pushed the building over to the eastern boundary, so that you would be getting very close to a virtual zero lot line on the one side to make it have room for the driveway to go between the building and the western boundary. And if you put the driveway in, that took out the two, or crowded the two proposed amenity spaces for the ground floor units on the building. So in this case, we decided to make the best of a side shot building with a parking lot in the front. And I think that's why we went a little heavy on maybe requiring a lot of extra stuff for the parking lot to make it look good and to visually screen it from the neighbors on both sides.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
I'm just curious about the floor design on the ground floor. I noticed there's only, out of the 6 apartments or units downstairs, only one has a doorway. The rest 5 have 5 patio doors. I'm just kind of curious in regards to fire code access and issues like that. Would a patio door be sufficient for fire code access? I would thought it would have to have an outward swinging door for fire purposes.
Councillor, Madam Chair, through you to the councillor. This application has not been reviewed by building officials at this time. So when it comes for permitting, for the permitting application, that issue will be looked at by the building officials.
Okay, thank you.
No. Okay. No one else? Okay, thank you, Daryl. And I'm going to ask the applicant if they want to come up to have any questions of clarification from council. I know Councillor Kent has, oh, you're done? Anything that you would like to say?
Well, we don't have any data this time, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, sure.
I'm Matthew Jarsky. I'm the architect on the project for
Okay.
Rom's Keg.
Excellent. Any questions of clarification? Yeah, go ahead.
Question about the patio door for fire exit purposes.
The units are accessed from a central hallway on the first floor. The patio doors are just for tenants to access their own amenity spaces. Exiting is through the interior.
I see that from the plan, but I thought the quickest way out is the first door to the outside, so you go into the hallway, you never know what fire is inside the building, so you want to get out of your unit directly. And that's why I kind of wonder, one unit has a doorway, the rest 5 have patio doors, so I'm not sure about that code or not.
It does.
If you want to get up a burning building, you want your first way out. I'm not going down the hallway.
Well, it's not unusual though to exit in an apartment building to exit through the corridor to an exit stair, and the patio door is you don't, in a larger occupancy, you need doors that you can push on a panic bar and everybody can get out without when they're running in panic. But in your own house, the front door that goes through the corridor or the patio door both serve as your exit.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Kent.
Thank you. One of the things that strikes me on this proposal is what is being conveyed as the facade
Mhm.
and what this could look like. Because the community has a mixed use with some commercial area, some industrial area, this rendering has a very industrial look. From a perspective of what that area, and that's where I live, currently have in the community, and looks warehousey. And so how much flexibility do you have to create facade in more in keeping with the homes that are in the general area? It's because the residents, of course, are concerned about it fitting in. Fitting in sometimes is about what it looks like to put what might look like a large warehouse facility. Just because it's presented in gray, it's presented with smaller windows, it's presented with very few texturized space on the building. Is that something that's still able to be considered if this were to go through? How bent are you on this?
Well, that's really a question. I mean, the DA says we can change the landscaping by coming back coming back to you folks. We really can't change much other than that. That's not to say we're not, flexible on
So
certain
perhaps,
things, but
then Daryl, you could answer
but-
that for me. Yeah.
I would say the windows are bigger than most of the buildings around. So, it's not.
Oh, are they?
It's
It's
not.
hard to tell that.
It's not like fortified with little, arrow slots or anything like that. And color, certainly we're open to revisiting color. But the overall massing is, it's not a huge building on the street, and then
Mhm.
yes, it goes a long way down the lot, but that's not so. That's not something that affects the streetscape in the same way as, let's say, a large building, towering over the street, or a long building that takes up block, the whole block or anything like that.
I think from a perspective of, I don't need to debate it, but I'll just make a comment from the perspective of a community that's more used to seeing buildings like this in more of an industrial area, that the houses that are in the general area, it would be a change,
Mhm.
debatable whether or not it's significant, but it would certainly affect their perspective of it. So that's why I raise it. Daryl, sorry, staff, are you able to comment on the ability for them to revisit that piece, or is that?
Councillor
how-
Kent, well, we have an opportunity to address Daryl at the end of the
Okay,
public
good
hearing,
enough.
so
Okay, thank you.
we'll save that for then. All right. Any other questions of clarification from council? Seeing none, thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're going to move to the public speakers section of our public hearing, and I'll call your names. And you'll be given 5 minutes to address the topic. And when I call your name, you may come up to the microphone. We have Mike Murray. Hi, Mike. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. You'll be notified by the clerk here at the 30-second before the ending. And if you could just state your name and the community in which you reside.
Hi, I'm Mike Murray. I live on 16 Campo Court. Basically, in my backyard is where they're rebuilding the building. Me and a few of the neighbors now have been in contact with a lawyer, so we were hoping to see if we were able to postpone a little longer and get a little more information from our lawyer.
You were looking to postpone the hearing
Yeah, we
tonight?
we basically need a little more time with our lawyer and go over things on the bylaws and everything like that.
Okay, I'm going to hand that to our solicitor to see
Yeah, no
what
problem.
she thinks.
I mean, it's always the discretion of council to postpone the public hearing and reschedule it, if you so wish.
Madam Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
How long is you and your neighbors looking at trying to have a legal challenge to the application? Because this has been postponed from a month ago, and here we are a month later than it should have been. Technically you had 2 months to deal with this matter, so.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah, a couple of weeks,
And
I don't.
like 2 weeks.
I guess I'm
Yeah, so
in regards, could I ask our solicitor process?
I think that would be a motion of council to do so. So we will take that under advisement, and as the night progresses, I think we'll go from there. Do you have anything? You have 5 minutes. Do you have anything else to?
No, that's it. I'd rather speak after I
Okay.
talk to my lawyer a little bit more.
Madam
Okay, go
Chair, I'd just like
Yeah.
to remind you, this is appealable to the Nova Scotia Utility and
That's the
Review
question I
Board.
was gonna ask. So if they don't like our decision tonight, they can appeal the URB.
Okay, so that is another alternative that
Okay.
your community would have
Okay.
if it gets passed tonight.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect,
Chair,
thank you.
just
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Gentle point of order.
Yes,
where,
please.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah,
it's
this is
supposed
not
to-
supposed to happen in a public hearing. We are not supposed to be having back and forth. Okay. So sorry. Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you. So,
Do you have any
No, I'm
Would you-
good.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks
No
for your
problem.
time
Thank
and thanks
you.
for coming out. Okay, folks, we don't have anyone else signed up on the list, so this is now an open call for anyone in the room who would like to come and speak to this. I'll ask again, anyone in the room who would like to come and speak? Third and final time, anyone who would like to come and speak to this?
Motion to close public hearing.
Okay, public hearing is now closed. Staff, do you have any points you would like to raise after the speaker?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. And so now, members of council, go ahead, Councillor Kent.
Yes, Madam Chair, I will put the motion on the floor and then speak to it. I would move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council, one, approve the proposed development agreement, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated September 16th, 2022, and two, require that the agreement be signed by the property owners within 120 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of final approval by the council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, that this approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at an end.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I put, just so for the folks watching and the resident that took the time to come out here tonight, which thank you very much. In order for us to have a debate on it, someone has to move it, and it's typical of the councillor of the area to do that. I have, I feel like at this stage, I want to spend some of my time speaking to the legislative requirement that we have to proceed with some form of either decision tonight, or if a deferral was put forward, then it has to be here among the group. I'm struggling as the counselor for the area to have a sense of to what end the deferral would be, if for a group of folks, this is the first time I've experienced this, for a group of folks have said that they want to touch base with a lawyer. And my experience has always been that if there was some consideration of that, an earlier reach out to their counselor like me, who I could help make sure that you understood the incomplete legislative process, the steps, understood the requirements by policy that is law for us, and understand the types of reasons that we would have to have in order to vote against a recommended position by staff, to understand that there, if this was to turn down tonight, the applicant could certainly go to the UARB for an appeal and potential an overturning of it. And to be frank, this is my second time at council, and I have seen so many more of those appeals actually being granted. There's a will and I think of a focused effort on providing new housing stock, which is a big part of my inclination to support this application. There is going to be, it would be, I think, a change in that particular area. I haven't been convinced of how significant the change is. There are other, as of right, similar denser applications, although this is a very small increase in density by comparison to some of the other areas in our suburban communities, even within the Dartmouth area, the Woodside area. So this is relatively small by comparison. And there are other as of right buildings of this kind of nature that are just down the road of Cow Bay Road on the same thoroughfare that are in keeping with it. So I would be struggling with that piece, the traffic impact as a counselor as well. And I certainly can appreciate, I don't know how much time I have left, Madam Chair. Thank you. I can certainly appreciate the concerns that have been raised on that road. To be frank, the concerns have been less about the traffic coming in and out of Campo and out of those homes in that close vicinity to the stop sign, that more about when there is the green light and people can speed through, the speed of which their people are moving, which is a problem across the municipality, and we are working on that. So I'm not sure that the addition, I'm finding it hard to argue with the statement of the traffic impact. The height concern, again, I think I had that clarified tonight. I've driven by there a lot because I drive around the district quite a bit, and I could pretty much tell based on the report that we had to bring it to public hearing that was in keeping with the height. It wasn't going to tower over any of the other homes. In fact, for the residents who are on Campo Crescent, it's actually lower than their sight lines, probably for their upper bedrooms and rooms on the second level. I think it's second or third and within those units. So I'm inclined to support it, move it forward. It has been not seconded, so we can do that. I know it's a difficult place. I want clarification though from staff. I'll leave before I leave in that when we said it's appealable, is it appealable also for that one person who is in the public or a group of people? Yeah, so I'm going to just, if that is the case, which I've had confirmed, that might be an alternative route as well for you, as opposed to spending a lot of your hard-earned money on a lawyer to go through that route first, because I'm not sure what the cost is, but I would think it would be less than the legal pieces that I'm worried that you're going towards a dead end, and I'd hate to see that for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Kent. Any other questions? Okay. Call for the question. All in favor say aye, contrary say nay.
Aye.
Okay, and this motion has passed. All right, thank you everyone for your participation in that public hearing. And that takes us to notices of tabled matters, and we have none. And then that brings us to our public hearing section. We have another public hearing tonight, case 22875, development agreement for 11 Canal Street, Dartmouth. Thank you for joining us today for another public hearing. The process will start with a staff presentation and questions of clarification from staff. The applicant will be given an opportunity to present, and after that, we will go to the public hearing. Speakers can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes, and please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and direct it to the chair. The chair will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining. The clerk will announce, and when your time is complete for all speakers. And after everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I will call 3 times to see if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to speak. Clerk, can you confirm if any additional correspondence has been received for this public hearing?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. There's been no additional correspondence received for this agenda item.
All right, then we are going to ask for a staff presentation on this, and we have Dean McDougall. Yes?
Yes. Good
Awesome.
evening.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Dean McDougall. I'm a planner with HRM, and I will be providing the staff presentation for the public hearing for case 22875. The applicant in this case is WM Fairs Architects. The location is 11 Canal Street in Dartmouth, and the proposal is to construct a mixed-use multi-unit building. So site context. The site is outlined in red on both images on the screen. And as you can see, it's within the Dartmouth Cove area, which is adjacent to Dartmouth Cove, part of the Halifax Harbour. And it's tucked in behind King's Wharf, and it is abutting downtown Dartmouth, separated by Alderney Drive. The site itself is located between the Dartmouth Curling Club and Dominion Diving on Canal Street. This is a photo of the site taken from Canal Street. As you can see, it's currently vacant, the site. It's been vacant now for about several years. On the planning process, my colleague outlined the typical planning process for an application. As you can see, we're also at the public hearing stage, which is the dark blue or the blue square. Excuse me. As noted, a decision of community council is appealable, and there's a 14-day appeal period following council's decision. Planning policy outline. So typically when a planning application is made, it's often enabled by the planning policy. So that means it was a vision that a development could happen here, and there were rules and guidelines written on how that development would look like. In HRM, we have sort of 3 levels of planning documents. The top level is the regional plan and subdivision bylaw, and this looks at the municipality in its whole, and it sort of identifies where population growth should occur, and also in the investment of services like transit and piped water should also occur. And then if you sort of zoom down closer into a very specific geographic area of HRM, that's where you have the community plan. And for this application, the community plan is the regional center secondary municipal planning strategy. And this community plan gets a little bit more detailed about what uses can happen where. And it's also, it's this document that allows a discretionary application like a rezoning or a development agreement. It enables those type of applications. And then our third detailed or planning document is the land use bylaw. And this is the most detailed document we have. As my colleague Daryl pointed out, most people are familiar with it as the zoning bylaw. And this identifies the specific zoning on each lot and outlines what permitted uses can happen there, and also detailed regulations on like site setbacks and things like that. And so this document, everyone knows what it is and what is expected. So because of that, they don't require any special approval from council to get a building permit or any feedback from the public. They can just go and apply for a permit from the development officer. In terms of our specific site, as I mentioned, it's governed by the regional center, secondary municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw, which is also known as the center plan. It's serviced by municipal sewer and water. The zone applied to the site is the Comprehensive Development District 2 zone, or the CDD2. The designation is the Future Growth Node, or FGN. I mentioned that the existing use is vacant, and there are several policies within the plan that allow for this development agreement to be considered. I'll touch on those policies sort of like an overarch of them all. So this property, as I mentioned, is within a future growth node. The specific future growth node is the Dartmouth Cove FGN. And future growth nodes in general within the center plan are applied to lands that are identified as having potential to accommodate significant growth due to their site size, location, and also proximity to municipal services like transit. Site-specific development agreement criteria and a general built form concept for the Dartmouth Cove future growth node was developed and put into the center plan during the public consultation of the center plan itself. So the policies that they seek to establish a new and appealing mixed-use neighborhood with strong relationships to the waterfront, open spaces, park spaces, trails, downtown Dartmouth, and the adjacent neighborhoods. To provide a little bit of a visual for that, this is map 13 of the center plan, and it shows what encompasses the Dartmouth Cove Future Growth Node area, or FGN. On this map here, it shows the dark gray line going from left to right across the street is a Petawogan Street Reserve. This is intended to be a new street through the development. It also shows the different precincts. So the future growth node area is divided up into 4 precincts, and each precinct has detailed planning criteria established to them that sort of try to achieve the objectives of the future growth node. This map also provides the densities and max building forms for each precinct, but also each parcel of land. So the floor area ratio is written on here, but omitted from the image, which would be like the built form, meaning sort of heights of the buildings. I do want to expand a little bit on development agreements in the regional center. So they may be a little bit different than what you're accustomed to. Options for development agreements applications, they're limited, and they're largely established for future growth nodes, heritage properties, or unique situations, such as an irregular shaped lot or commercial uses in an established residential zone. And the policies within the center plan for future growth nodes, they require that the sites adhere closely to the appropriate zones and sections of the LUB with options for very limited variation. So basically, they're telling us to toe the line, to just for a new development to go and use an appropriate zone in the land use bylaw. So this has changed how site-specific development agreements are written. So we shifted away from detailed building design development agreements in the regional center. Usually you'd see a development agreement with the site plan, a landscape plan, elevations. We don't have that here. Instead, we're just being directed to have the property to be developed under an appropriate zone. So for this proposal, as per the direction of the center plan, the applicant is asking to develop the site under the Center 2 zone of the land use bylaw. And they are requesting some limited variations, which I will expand on in a couple of slides. Maximum FAR 5.7 will be applied to the site, and the building form will consist of 2 residential towers, a tall mid-rise and a high-rise over a shared podium. Commercial ground floor uses facing Canal Street and Patawogan Street are required as well as the cohesive interaction with Martins Park, and also the requirement to have pedestrian-oriented uses facing Martins Park on the ground floor of the building. Understanding it can be difficult to look at text and numbers and sort of envision what a building could look like or its potential, what the final product could be. The applicant has provided some massing examples to show what the final build out could look like here, massing and scale only. The applicant will provide more details on that in their presentation and more slides, but I have it here as well. Again, I just want to stress that this is just from an example only of the massing. The detailed design will happen at permitting as per the regulations of the bylaw. But as you can see here, the end result would be a 30-story tower and an 8 to 9-story building on the shared podium. Those text and numbers I spoke to, here they are. Well, the high-level ones anyway, for the Center 2 zone. These requirements sort of lay out the box that the building can be built in on the property. It also gives you an idea of the amenity space requirements of the C2 zone and the unit mix requirements as well that would be applied to the site. They're the last 2 rows on this chart. So the land use bylaw variation. So as I mentioned, the applicant is seeking several limited variations, and I'll go over those right now. So the first one is in regards to the floor area. And this one isn't so much of a variation, but rather a redistribution. And I'll sort of explain what I mean by that. So the lot area used to determine the floor area for this development includes the lands that were recently acquired from the applicant for the Patawogan Street extension. And so this is not unique. That land use bylaw allows this already. The DA is confirming it in the agreement, but also allowing flexibility in the distribution of that floor area, while also still ensuring that the building heights and form envisioned for the Dartmouth Cove area are observed. So all that to say, really, that dotted line that goes north and south on the page, it just allows some flexibility on where that lands on the property. The greater floor area will still be on the corner or facing Canal Street, and then facing Martin Park will still have the lower floor area, which meets the intent of the Dartmouth Cove future growth node. The second variation is the max building dimension requirement. So the land use bylaw requires that the maximum building dimension of 64 meters. And I've shown here where that would exactly land on the property. And this variation is requested so that the applicant can provide a continuous street wall along Patawogan Street extension, and recognizing that the irregular lot shape due to the transportation reserve land acquisition. In exchange for this variation, the development agreement requires that the massing of the building be broken up by changes in the building form and designed to make it look like two or more distinct buildings. So there has to be some step backs and greater variation on the street wall to make it visually look like this could actually be two separate properties. We also have a variation regarding the setback facing Martins Park. So currently the land use bylaw has a 6-meter setback from the park, but it allows that part of the structure that's underground to go closer, pretty much almost right to the property line. In this circumstance, that could be a problem because of the potential grade changes that will happen with the redevelopment of the site and also the Dartmouth Cove area and the park itself. So what could happen is that it could result in a blank wall facing Martins Park. And so to avoid this and ensure that there's a complementary interaction, there was a 6-meter setback both above and below ground is required for the development. This was determined in consultation with our Parks Department to allow sufficient room for adequate design and also grade alteration between the two sites. The proposed DA also includes site-specific regulations for street wall step back, tower side yard step back, and balcony encroachments for the high-rise portion of the development. And these are required to ensure the overall density and built form objectives of the Dartmouth Cove FGN are realized. They're minor variations in staff's opinion, and they just ensure that there's enough floor area in the towers to have enough units to get what the density that the plan envisions here. So summary of key aspects of the proposal: Center 2 zone would be applied with those variations I just outlined. The built form end result would be 2 residential towers, a tall mid-rise, which is approximately 25 meters, 26 meters, and a high rise of 26 meters or taller over 1 shared podium. The maximum floor area applied to this site, commercial ground floor on the 2 street frontages, as well as a cohesive interaction with Martins Park, and then also pedestrian-oriented uses facing the park as well to ensure that there's an interaction there. And also it requires the density bonusing contribution as per the requirements of the land use bylaw, as is required elsewhere in the regional center, which is a requirement that 60% be put towards affordable housing and the other 40% are options provided to the applicant. We could put it towards affordable housing or through a list of other things that's provided in the land use bylaw. In terms of public engagement, the level of engagement completed was consultation achieved through information sharing on our website, signage at the site, and a mail-out notification. Feedback from the community generally focused on the heights of the building. So the building heights were thought to be too tall and that don't fit in with the existing neighborhood. And also not enough open space was provided. Excuse me. In terms of the notifications mailed, 66 were mailed within the notification area, which was also expanded beyond our normal standard because of the location of Dartmouth Cove. It's nobody's living immediately in the area, so we had to expand it to ensure we got a greater part of the community. Web page views, it had quite a lot of interest in terms of web page views. 1,827 unique IP addresses were recorded. And then in total of communication provided to staff, there was only 5 individuals contacted us with comments. Non-substantive amendments, these are changes to the agreement that can be made without a formal public hearing. And the agreement proposes 2 changes to the grade requirements along the shared property line with Martins Park. And this one is put in there more as a fail-safe, just to ensure that at detailed design, if some of the language doesn't work and we can't get the objective we want, we can come back and tweak the language. And then the extension of the dates of commencement and completion for the development. So with that, staff recommend that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council approve the proposed development agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated September 26, 2022.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Does any member have a question? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. 2 questions. One, I just want to make sure I understand. I'm going to try and put it plain English. So the road that we're going to put in, if I understood what you're saying correctly, the density that they would have been allowed for that land is basically being transferred onto the remaining. So they're remaining whole, even though they're losing that chunk of their property. Is that what I understood?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Councillor, yes.
Okay. All right. So my second question is, maybe it's not a planning one. I'm not sure. Maybe it's more of a practical one. How do you build a building when the street that it's going to be grade oriented to, that's going to slope up for a bridge, doesn't exist yet?
That's a great, through you, Madam Chair, to the council. That's a great question. There's three stakeholders and a lot of moving parts to this. But thankfully the street, like, in an ideal world, the street would come first. But luckily HRM is very close to constructing the street. I think the last time I spoke with the staff, they were 90% complete in the design. So we know the elevations, the exact points of the street where it would land, and so that the applicant can design the building to that street. Now, there may be, right now in terms of timelines, the most recent feedback I received is that construction will begin in 2025 and with completion 2026. And the applicant might be able to speak to this more, but the recent timelines for themselves lines up with that. So in ideal world, the street comes first, but it's looking like both will happen at the same time. But in the circumstance where it doesn't, some interim measures will have to be put in place, knowing that in the end, at the final product, they'll work. So.
Okay. It's more complicated than most situations, that's for sure. And then, of course, Dartmouth Cove also has to come up in elevation too for the sea level risk. So
that's right.
Complicated. Thank you for that.
Councillor Kent and then Councillor Hensby.
Yep.
Was first. Okay, Councillor Hensby, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions following from Councillor Austin's comments in regards to the street line and stuff. Are there proposed for underground parking for these structures?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that can fill up some of the street wall down below the street. In regards to the Martin Park and the common property line and grade alterations, talk about a pedestrian-oriented way. To me, that sounds like a greenway path. You look at having along the brook. Would that greenway will hopefully be an extension to what's up at Irishtown Road and to the incline plane we have for the Shuby Canal system? I know we have a greenway walkway to that particular corner. I see this as possible as a future extension down towards the Harbour front and eventually to the Trans-Canada Trail.
That is the overall objective, yes, is to have an interconnected network. So the existing trail that's on the canal now will be reconstructed as part of the street extension, and it'll connect up to the bridge. That's going to be going over the canal when they come over from Alderney, and then it will connect down into the Canadian Trail. And then also eventually with Sawmill and the locks there as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you revisit the last, it was the middle part of the recommendation, which was your fail-safe. Can you help me understand that again?
Sure. Absolutely. So the agreement is, I'll back up for a second. So we're trying to set ourselves up for the best success because the detailed design of the park hasn't been completed yet. So we're trying to write into the agreement requirements that when those plans get there, that they work together to ensure that the grades meet and that there's actual interaction, that the units interact with the park. We try our best, but sometimes we fail in our wording and we actually put ourselves in a little bit of a bind. So this is sort of a way to come back and change the wording in the agreement. Should it be too restrictive? So for an example, would be the agreement requires the slopes to be minimized in steepness. So if an interpretation is that for example, a terraced wall is steep, and is conflicting with that, but we want a terraced wall there. Parks Department wants a terraced wall. We can come back and change the wording to ensure that it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so our motion doesn't have that degree of information, and when I look at that, yeah, it's in the policy. Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that how you word that, because within this agreement to include an extension to the dates, it almost reads as if you've already approved an extension, but it allows you to if you need it.
Yes.
And that's within the policy.
And the agreement, which is attachment A on the
Yeah,
staff.
yeah,
report.
yeah. Okay, it's in the fine detail of the agreement. Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I think we're good for questions of clarifications. Thank you very much. And now I will invite the applicant to come and share their presentation. And John Dibb of WM Fairs, you are welcome to go to the podium or, yeah, wherever. Okay, perfect. And as you're getting set up there, you have 10 minutes. And our clerk here will let you know at the 30-second prior to end time.
Perfect. Thank you very
All
much.
right, when you are ready, go ahead.
Thanks. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of council. My name is John Dibb, and on behalf of WM Ferris Architects and our client, Mosaic Properties, I would like to introduce members of council, HRM staff, and community representatives to our proposal for a mixed-use development at 11 Canal Street. As mentioned, the vision for Dartmouth Cove is to create a walkable and integrated community that connects to existing parts of the downtown core. Centrally located, the area presents an opportunity to develop a sustainable, vibrant, and mixed-use neighborhood to enhance the Dartmouth waterfront and provide valuable amenities to the surrounding communities. To put these principles into action, HRM staff have developed a map to guide future proposals, identifying 4 precincts, each with their own unique set of design characteristics. Established within the precincts are provisions for building height and maximum floor area ratio to achieve a desired density. As shown, the subject site is regulated by a number of parameters. The west portion designated for the development of a tall mid-rise form with a floor area ratio of 3.25, and the east being assigned a high-rise form with a floor area ratio of 5.25. The proposal is situated on a common base that will feature retail and other commercial businesses along Canal Street and the proposed street extension to help connect the study area to the rest of downtown Dartmouth. Located at the intersection of the Martins Park Trail, HRM Street Extension, and proposed Canal Street Greenway, the proposal serves to animate this critical area of Dartmouth Cove by providing a variety of uses to create a pedestrian-friendly environment. Atop the shared podium sit 2 masses that align with the forms established in the HRM plan. A tall mid-rise structure faces the Shubenacadie Canal, while a high-rise tower has been situated along Canal Street, placing lower-scaled forms near open space and higher-density masses where commercial and recreational uses are envisioned to be the most intense. Considering existing and future infrastructure, the relationship between the proposal and its surroundings is vital to contributing to the success of Dartmouth Cove. This is achieved by situating the project with considerable setbacks from the canal to complement the amenities planned for this area, while creating a vibrant facade through potential art locations along the proposed HRM Street extension. At grade, a mix of public and private uses creates a unique relationship between the project and adjacent spaces. The development aims to revitalize existing facilities such as the canal by introducing grade-related pedestrian entrances along its perimeter, while the presence of a strong commercial street front will contribute to the vibrancy of a new corridor into the Dartmouth Cove area. Within the street wall, a mix of residential units and parking has been introduced to mitigate challenges related to a high water table throughout the Dartmouth Cove area. Providing a considerable amount of parking will help achieve the walkability of the future growth node by removing cars from the street and allowing this space to be used for well-designed pedestrian corridors that promote active transportation. Above the street wall, amenity spaces in each tower frame an elevated green roof for residential use. The introduction of amenity space above the height of the street wall creates a relationship where the tower forms meet the shared podium and introduces an active landscape just a few levels above grade. Positioning public and private amenity in this way integrates the 2 uses, as private amenities benefit from the vibrancy of neighboring public places, while uses at the street level are further animated by activities of the rooftop. The building's 2 towers include a variety of unit types that range in size to provide housing in a way that accommodates different lifestyles and living situations. Considering housing in this way, a variety of family types are introduced to the area and provided with the amenities they require from a comprehensively designed neighborhood. Step backs above the height of the street wall contribute to the success of the surrounding environment by enhancing spaces at the human scale, helping to create an experience focused on a well-considered relationship between built and natural landscapes. The massing of the proposal steps down as it approaches the canal to create a street wall along what is proposed to be an active pathway in the Dartmouth Cove area. Gentle slopes along the edge of the canal provide open space for a variety of recreational uses, both active and passive, and promotes a vibrant green space within the region. Stepbacks are also introduced above the height of the street wall to align with the policies in the municipal planning strategy and built form requirements of the land use bylaw. These stepbacks contribute to a pedestrian-focused experience at grade, allowing commercial and other public uses to thrive while private residences and amenity are located above the street wall. The stepbacks also contribute to creating appropriate separation distances between built forms to mitigate wind and shadow impacts on neighboring public space. Preliminary massing of the proposal shows how the towers are placed atop the podium to create a unique street presence which varies with the immediate surroundings. As you approach the site from the north end of the Canal Street, the tower and commercial space appear first with a prominent street wall that marks the corner of a reinvigorated intersection in the Dartmouth Cove area. From Dundas Street, the proposal is situated along the side of the canal with a variety of public and private uses lining its perimeter to promote a vibrant and active urban landscape. The arrangement of forms in this way achieves the visions set out for Dartmouth Cove, aimed to introduce new people, businesses, and activities to an area of Dartmouth slated for redevelopment. Thank you for your time. Myself and my colleague Cesar Sala are here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of clarification? Go ahead, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Just one. Just wondering, along the park edge, right, since that is rather, I think it's going to be a really important space in the redevelopment of Dartmouth Cove and downtown Dartmouth with the river and the trail and everything else happening. Right now, you've got residential slotted for back there. Was there ever any thought to commercial along that back wall?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the consideration for residential uses along that street wall was they would be at-home commercial uses is the intent of them. We didn't want to put exclusively commercial uses, and the uses that are proposed there are flexible. It's just at this time we have sort of at-home commercial uses proposed for that area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Hensby.
Similar to Councillor Austin's comments, I would have thought with the view plane overlooking the Martins Park, the canal, and Albany Landing, and all the Albany Drive, and all the gardens it has, it'd been a much more picturesque opportunity for a commercial platform there for cafes, restaurants, stuff to overlook that greenery area instead of just residential. I would have thought that might have been a more of a idea for that particular stretch of the property.
Again, through you, that is the uses that we are proposing along the canal are open to consideration, and through detailed design will be developed and introduced into the project.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Sorry. If you want to stay there, we have a public participation coming up, and then you are able to answer any concerns that come up.
Sure.
Okay, so now we're going to enter the public participation part of our public hearing, and I will call your name. We have one person on the speakers list, and when I call your name, please come up to the microphone there at the front. And sorry, I cannot make out the last name very well, but it's Victor Cox. Mr. Cox, excellent. So when you approach, if you could state your name and the community with which you reside. Thank you. And you have 5 minutes to speak, and Mr. Clerk will give you the 30-second warning.
Okay, I hadn't intended to speak, actually, but one of my concerns was the timing of the development.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cox, could you please state your name and your community?
Victor Cox, I live on Crichton Avenue, but I'm concerned with, I'm executive of Club 24, which is just across across Alderney Drive from the Dartmouth Cove. Basically, I was wondering about the timing of it sounds like it's a couple of years before this is going to be developed.
Yes, if you state all of your concerns, we'll write it down and we'll try to, the applicant has the opportunity to speak to your concerns, so you can just go ahead and state them all.
Okay, one concern was the timing of the construction of the bridge over the extension, and the other was the timing of the Canal Street development going ahead. Basically,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cox. Okay, and now I'm going to open it up to the rest of the gallery. Does anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak?
Can I just ask a question?
You are welcome to come and ask your question at the front. State your name and community with which you reside.
Sure. My name is Barry Gallant, and I live up the hill on Boundary Street. And I walk by that site every day or twice a day. I'm just anxious of when you're going to build for sure, because we've been promised development in the area quite a bit, and nothing's happening. So are we sure it's 25 and finishing in 26? Or?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any other speakers in the gallery? Do I have to start the 3 times again? Any other speakers in the gallery? And third and final, any other speakers? Okay. Okay, thank you. We have closed the public hearing, and Mr. Dibb, you are welcome to respond to anything that you have heard.
So thank you. Both of them seem like they're regarding the timing of the project. As stated by Dean, the process to get permits it takes a few years to get the permits, but the intent is that with the street extension, the proposal would like to align itself with the construction to facilitate some efficiencies, having the construction of the street and the construction of the development occur at the same time. There's can be a lot saving on potential issues, having to construct the street and then dig it up after the fact, right after it's complete. So the intent would be to have construction occur simultaneously, but it is hard to say at this stage before permits have been acquired and detailed design has occurred. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks. So, staff, would you like to address any of the concerns that were brought up? All right, welcome back.
Thank you. I can just, Mr. Cox, I can speak to just the timing of the street extension, and also if maybe we can speak after the meeting, and I can put you in contact with the team that's running the project team for that project, so you can have a direct conversation about the specific timing. But the most update information I got today was that it's anticipated that the construction will begin in 2025 and will be phased over 2 construction seasons with an anticipation completion date of November 2026. But the actual phasing of it and it hasn't gone out to tender yet, meaning it hasn't been approved just yet. So I can put you in, like I said, I can put you in contact with that project team and give you the best information around the timing of that work. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Council, what is your wish? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Austin.
I'll just read yours. That'll be easier. Thank you. Okay, so I move that Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council, one, approve the proposed development agreement, which shall be substantially of the same form as said on attachment A of the staff report dated September 26, 2022. And two, require the development agreement be signed by the property owner within 120 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of the final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, this approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at an end.
All right, thank you, Councillor Hensby.
So thank you, colleagues. Thank you, staff, on this one. It was, when I first got the report, it was a little bit of a surprise. You're used to seeing the pretty pictures of what things are going to look like. And, you know, if you want to scare someone in the public, show them just a big gray box, right? And that's what the massing models are. But of course, we know that's not what we're going to get, you know, because they're going to have to go through all the requirements of our center plan. And, you know, we've seen over time, proposals come back here for very minor things that they needed to change along the way. So actually, this is where what we're doing with our current zoning, like everything on Wise Road, is going to go through this way. So I don't have a problem with it approaching this, although I was quite surprised when I opened that report. You know, one of the speakers, Mr. Gallant, he referenced, you know, the delays and promises made. I have to say, unfortunately, most of those promises were by the municipality, and the fault is with us on this. You know, we did that extensive Dartmouth Cove plan, and in concert with Develop Nova Scotia, and then it was up to HRM to actually take that plan and make it something real that then people like these folks could then apply to build under. And that work of updating the downtown plan, which was originally going to be done before the center plan, it just was not resourced. It didn't get off the ground. It took longer than expected. And then it got folded into the center plan. And then the center plan took longer than expected. And so before you knew it, 6 years had passed. And thankfully in 2020, we actually set the policy right. So the Dartmouth Cove plan is now the vision for what we have here. And as part of that vision, it was keep the height towards the center of the site, keep things low on the other side. This proposal fits with that. So I am quite satisfied with the direction that we have before us. But I did want to just emphasize that most of the delay on this was it really was on the municipality side. To what Councillor Hensby asked about and what I had asked about, I mean, when I think about the canal there and, you know, there's flexibility on this, whether it's grade-oriented units, residential would be nice there, but I had the same sort of mind's eye about the pathway and some restaurant or cafe along the canal there overlooking it. I mean, this can be a really super spot. So I'm happy to have council approve this. So this is what I would urge my colleagues to do tonight. And I look forward to seeing something more than just the kind of massing model as this progresses. So we all know a little bit more as to exactly what we're going to get, keeping in mind that there's more complexity around this one than normal just because of that, because of the bridge piece that's coming into it and all that other infrastructure. So thank you, colleagues.
Any other questions? A quick call for the question. Okay, all in favor say aye. Contrary, nay.
Aye.
Excellent. And that motion has been passed and that is approved. Excellent. Okay, we are moving right along. Thank you, everyone who came out for that public hearing. We really appreciate seeing you and hearing from you. We are moving on to our correspondence, petitions, and delegations. And clerk, have we received any correspondence?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Correspondence has been received in relation to items 8.1. And this correspondence was previously distributed to members of Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council.
All right, thank you very much. Any petitions, colleagues, clerk? No petitions. All right, presentations, we have none. Information items brought forward, none. And that takes us to our reports. And our first report is case 22734, development agreement for the former Shannon Park lands, Dartmouth. Yep, go ahead, Councillor Mancini.
Madam Chair, I put the following motion on the floor that the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed development agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated January 6, 2023, to allow for the redevelopment of a new residential community on the former Shannon Park lands, Dartmouth, and schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Second.
All right, go ahead, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. Here we are, talking Shannon Park and Community Council. This has taken us some time. I mean, I was elected in 2016, and the conversation was already underway way before then. Here we're finally having a conversation, so happy to hear about that. You know, this is first reading, colleagues, so I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward tonight, but, you know, just to give a little bit of history here, I think, you know, when you look at Dartmouth and public consultation prior to the center plan in Dartmouth, this is probably the most consultation that we saw on any piece of property within Dartmouth. And so a lot of public input to Shannon Park, a lot of interest in developing Shannon Park. There have been delays. I've been asking on a regular basis, what's going on with Shannon Park? And every time we go over the McKay Bridge, I'm sure every one of you wonder, what's going on with Shannon Park? You know, there's been lots of delays. You know, the top three delays have been, well, the center plan. It was, you know, it was strategic to wait till the center plan being completed, then ready to go, and took a few steps forward. And then there was a little conversation around Councillor Austin's favorite topic, the stadium. And so we had Commonwealth Games before that, the stadium. And so that all slowed things down. And then the stadium, the conversations paused. And then the little thing that showed up in our lives, the pandemic. And so all of these things, we started 2 steps and went back 4 steps. And so here we are today. So this is, you know, we're hearing about developments here tonight. You're going to hear a lot more developments in Dartmouth in the next coming weeks and months ahead. Dartmouth is identified as a growth area, and Shannon Park plays a big role in that. You know, a lot of the questions I hear from the residents in the area, there's a number on the top of the list, though. Is when is Shannon Park happening? And I see our folks from Canada Lands here today. What about the affordable housing piece? You know, that's probably the top of the list when we talk about Shannon Park. I don't think the expectation is that we're going to have it. People want the whole thing to be affordable housing, but, you know, is there going to be an affordable housing piece? Now, we at the municipality are limited to that. We will get into that if this approves tonight when we get into public hearing, but, you know, around density bonusing. But I believe there's an opportunity, and Canada Lands does have the examples of other properties across Canada where they've been successful with affordable housing. I know the rules are different in every municipality, in every province, but hopefully they can bring some of that creativity to this particular project. Other questions around, you know, transit pieces, the ferry, the Millbrook piece of the property, which is not what we're talking about tonight, you know, terminal hub. And so a lot of those things, a lot of those questions, it's being asked to look at the school. The school is staying, but they are in the development agreement. They're talking about if the school no longer exists, can they quickly flip that into residential? Green space is important. The trail system, you know, is there an opportunity for that AAA bike network to go through here? And then let's not forget about the history of this land. You know, the military history, the indigenous history, and the francophone history is really important. So these are all the questions that people have, and I suspect we'll have lots of people show up if this gets approved tonight, so we can go to a public hearing. So I've asked my colleagues to support this so we can move forward and then really get into the nuts and bolts of it, hopefully sooner than later. So thank you, Madam Chair. Our explosion should be another one too. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments? No, call for the question. Okay. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Excellent. And that motion has passed. We are moving right along here to the next. Conflict of interest. Case 23805, development agreement for lands located on Portland Street in Carver.
That would be mine, Madam Chair. I'm happy to put the motion on the floor.
Thank you.
Put the following motion on the floor that the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give first reading to consider approval of the proposed amendment to the land use bylaw for Dartmouth as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated December 9th, 2022, to rezone lands located on Portland Street and Carver Street, Dartmouth from R1, which is single family dwelling zone, to R4 multiple family residential zone, high density, and to allow a 6-story mixed use multi-unit building and schedule a public hearing. So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Councillor Kent. So a little bit of history here also. Dean, who's the planner on this, hosted a public information session. We had quite a few folks come out to that session. And the things that we heard that night, there was concern about the density and the height. There was concern about how close the building would be to Kathy Drive. There was concerns about the entrance, shadowing, traffic, a lot of those concerns. Some of those are the same concerns that we hear quite often when we look at development, but there were some that were particular to this site, obviously. It's an interesting area. Portland Street, that area is a very busy street. It's really a highway when you think about it. And, but it's also very, the community, the residents in behind is, those residents and properties have been there for a long time. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Landrace Park, which is a pretty cool park who's evolved over time there. There's a great playground. There's lots of green space. There's an amazing community garden there. We put in basketball courts, both senior and junior courts there. And you may or may not be aware of, and Councillor Austin will be interested to hear about this, there are now plans for Halifax Water to do some daylighting of Ellenvale Run right through the park. So this proposed area is a very unique area to take a look at. Again, it's first reading. So I'm asking my colleagues to support the first reading and go to a public hearing and where we can hear back from the public. My understanding and looking through the report, it does identify a lot of things I mentioned. The applicant has made adjustments and hearing from the public. So my desire is to go to the public hearing so we could see a presentation on it from both our staff and the applicant, and then allow residents in that community to speak. So I'm looking for your support to move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
Question?
call for the question. All in favor, say aye, and contrary, nay.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. And that motion has passed.
All right.
And welcoming back Councillor Austin. And moving on to 13.1.3, case 24230, amending development agreement for Harbour Isle on Marketplace Drive.
So that's mine also. It's District 6 tonight, the rest of the agenda here. I'll put the
All
following
right.
motion on the floor that the Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council give notice of motion to consider the proposed amending development agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated December 9, 2022, to permit additional residential density and a change in land use of 3 lots and changes to built form requirements and schedule a public hearing. So moved.
All right, excellent.
Thank you, Councillor Hensby. So this is another piece of property and development that's been going on for a long time. And if you're not familiar where this is, it's off of Windmill Road. It's near where the yacht club is, and the property actually, there's commercial off of Windmill Road. You'll now see 2 towers there, and then you'll see a mid-rise to the right. And so they're looking to make some adjustments as they expand this property, things they want to increase the density. And if I can think of any place to increase density, this would be one of those places to do so. This is a phased-in project. So we're talking multiple years to complete what's being proposed here. It's probably, within the next 3 years, if they got approval, they would start. And then it's probably 10, 15 years to actually complete all of that we're looking to do to it. There's no immediate residential area there next to it, other than the 2 towers in the mid-rise, and as I mentioned, good place for increased density. And just to be aware of the community and what's going around that area, this is also the area for the terminal on Wright Cove, that bus terminal that we were hoping to be in place by now, but there's had a number of delays over the last number of years. My understanding from staff that they're looking at construction happening now on that bus terminal 25, 26 and opening it in 26, 27. There are gaps on the sidewalk there that we need to connect. There are the Windmill Road volume of traffic and, the testing of bus only lanes. So, and again, it's right up near to Burnside. So it's a very busy part, but it's an opportunity to expand. There are, those that live in those two towers in that mid-rise, and I've spoken to many of those people, they love living there. It's actually a cool spot. It just needs more public amenities in that area, and hopefully we can take a look at that. So again, colleagues, sound like a broken record. I'm asking you to support this tonight so that we can go to a public hearing and get into more details and then hear from the public. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else to speak to this?
Perfect spot for a ferry terminal.
It is a perfect spot for it. Giddy up, let's get it built.
All right. What is your wish?
Question?
All right. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay.
All right.
Excellent. And that motion has passed. So moving on to 13.2, members of Community Council, we have none. Motions, we have none. No in-camera items. No any added items. None. Notices of motion? No. And now we move on to the general public participation. Any member of the public is welcome to speak to Community Council. Speakers can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. And the clerk will announce when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is complete for all speakers. Do we have any member of the public who wishes to speak tonight? Any member of the public who would like to speak tonight? Third and final time, any member of the public who would like to speak? All right, next time. Okay, we go to the date of the next meeting. We have February 2nd. Is that Groundhog Day? Oh my dear, February 2nd, 2023. We will know how much longer winter will be.
Madam Chair, I'm
On
wondering just
February
before we
2nd.
adjourn, if I have one item, I'm wondering since we're testing the online, which I'm thrilled that we finally have here, when the notice of the next meeting goes out, looking at the clerk, and we make sure that we add some additional PR or notice of that so people are aware of it.
Yeah, that's
I think
excellent.
Especially
Newsletters.
we may have a couple of public hearings, and I'm hoping, clerk, if you would pass on to be careful of the 3 public hearings in District 6 that we should have. How quickly can we get the next one? Hopefully, the next meeting we can get a public hearing in there for Shannon Park, but or make sure that we don't have Shannon Park and Portland Street on the same agenda night because there'll be lots of interest. So rather than take a long night, let's split those 2 up if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem, Councillor Mancini. Are we okay with Councillor Kent making an announcement?
Yeah, I just want to let folks know if they're on the live stream and listening or hear that on Monday, we will be hosting our first Board of Police Commission meeting in this room, and it'll be live streamed, but certainly open to the public. We encourage you. We're trying to move it out of City Hall to give other people in the municipality opportunities to have access to those kinds of meetings. So you're welcome to come and encourage that. Thank you.
We're more friendly in Dartmouth anyway.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn. We are adjourned, and thank you all for coming and participating in our council meeting tonight. Thank you for watching at home.